Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I am Rachel B. Lee, and it's Friday. And that means I have an amazing guest with me. I'm here usually at the first Friday of the month, and then I scatter in others that I think are incredibly amazing. And Tiffany Yu is one of those lady bosses. When I thought about Women's History Month, and this week we celebrated International Women's Day, she came to mind because for somebody who is breaking the bias, finding their voice, paving the way for new voices, new faces, she's it. And we met on Clubhouse like a year ago at this time when you'd hang out with me over a cup of coffee at 7 a.m., right? Build your brand and work the shit out of it. And Tiffany was so committed and so beautiful. So I appreciate you for that. She really has always shown that love and support. And so today I want to talk about you. Your story is one for the books. And honestly, I'm learning so much from you as you've been a part of the LinkedIn Accelerator program, as you continue to share your voice. So let's start this off with you talking a little bit about this incredible journey that you've been on and how in that process you've been finding this incredible voice that you have.
Mm, how much time do we have?
We have 30 minutes.
We have
Oh,
30 minutes.
Xander's here. Yay, we got to say hi. Xander's here. What's up? We got Josh and Lisa. Hello, friends. Okay,
Hello.
Tiffany, you.
Okay, here we go. So I like to start off by sharing that I'm the daughter of a Taiwanese immigrant, my dad, and a refugee from the Vietnam War. And I think that will make a little bit more sense as we move a few chapters forward. And I know that I had chosen the topic unlearning shame, and that will also kind of make a little bit of sense in the context here. So the youngest of four, born in the US to Asian immigrants. And the turning point for me happened when I was 9. And at the age of 9, on the way home from dropping my mom off at the airport, my dad lost control of the car. I broke a couple of bones in one of my legs that would leave me in a wheelchair for 4 months. I permanently paralyzed my arm. And much, much later, I'd be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, related to that accident. And so bringing in the daughter of Asian immigrants within my family, my mom has said something to me, and she has said, I don't want anyone to know about our struggle. And I feel like that is the theme of what happened over the next 12 years after the car accident. And so from ages 9 until 21, my mom modeled for me that I shouldn't tell anyone about my dad or my arm or the car accident or anything traumatic or mental health related. So I wore long sleeves all the time. I told everyone my dad was away on a trip, and I didn't tell anyone about the car accident. And a lot of people that I'm reconnecting with from elementary, middle, high school, 15 years ago, they're all like, Tiffany, I didn't know about the car accident, or I didn't know about your dad. And they were like, I knew about your arm, but no one ever asked you about it, right? And so because I felt so much shame about this like trifecta of this experience that I had when I was 9, I didn't have an outlet to process my grief and my trauma. And as a result, I actually think that's what exacerbated me now living with a mental illness, right? If you don't have the processing system to complete that stress response cycle. So fast forward to age 21, I'm a senior in college. I just finished this summer internship in investment banking at Goldman Sachs, and I had my full-time offer in hand. A lot of really great things happened at Goldman, and the most important of which was I felt like it was the first time I wasn't given an easy button for life. In the past, people would like know that, my arm was paralyzed, and they'd be like, oh, you don't have to participate. Oh, you can sit out on this one. And that became like a consistent theme of those 12 years. And then at 21, after doing this internship, they were like, 1 arm, no arms, octopus, 8 arms, like pitch book, 8 a.m., thanks.
Yeah, do the work. I'm thinking, can't even. Yeah.
And so I call that a little bit of tough love. And I started to get really curious, what does tough love look like within disability spaces where we are pushed to our potential and operate at a level that is much higher than where other people in society have expected that we should be. And the expectations are set very low. So that became the first iteration of Diversability, which is the company that I run now. But at the time, it was really, are there other people with disabilities out there who are really curious about what it would look like for us to find each other and for us to share our stories? So from 9 years old until age 21, I still remember the day. It was October 22nd, 2009. That was the first time I ever shared the story of the car accident publicly. And fast forward, there have been a couple different career pivots since then. I then went into working in investment banking full time, pivoted and became a TV producer at Bloomberg Television, went back into corporate finance for a company co-founded by P. Diddy, worked at a startup, got fired, and now for the past 5 years have been running Diversability, but also have kind of like emerged as this like speaker and content creator and brand person under your clubhouse rooms.
I mean, what I love about your story is just how dynamic you are and how these struggles have actually that brought this vulnerability and intimacy, and I feel like people, Tiffany, hide just like you did, hide these parts of their life because they're fearful, when really that is the juice for their entire life and passion and purpose. It's like
Mhm.
in that struggle is the personal brand, is how you find your voice. Tiffany, I'm curious. I had the great pleasure of doing a workshop for Diversability, and the people were so incredible. Just really, it brought such awareness to me about what it is for others who have different things, how it's not that easy to share content. It might not be easy to get on every day, right? They're the first time they're getting a job, right? Because they're finally somebody accepted them to give them a job.
Mhm.
For you, what keeps you going? How, when you're working with Diversability, what are you speaking and telling them, right? When it comes to building their personal brand and sharing their voice, what is your sort of message to for your entire organization as you put yourself on a platform?
Yeah, I guess I'll say it's two things. So number one is I know I shared kind of I call these our disability origin stories. So that first one happened when I was 9 years old, and that second one happened when I was 21. Right, that October 22nd, 2009 date, where I was like, I'm really curious what it looks like to fill my space as a disabled person, to actually go on this journey of accepting that this is the new body that I'm living in, that is, and it's okay to grieve the old body that I used to be in as well. And part of our work is how can we get as many people to that second story of being proud to be disabled. And if you're not proud, accepting it, embracing it, understanding like the same way that I'm Asian and that I'm a woman, and society makes assumptions and judgments about who I am based on those two identities, they make similar judgments about the fact that I'm disabled as well, right? And so what keeps me going is again, how can we get as many people to that second story? And to be totally transparent, a lot of disabled people will never get to that second story, and that's okay too. But for me, I'm like, I see the own arc in my own journey of really, what's that phrase, like phoenix rising from the ashes? Like, I think back to that 12-year period of like 9-year-old Tiffany, and my heart breaks a little for her, right? I still feel really sad for this little girl who experienced something I don't want anyone to experience. But I look to 21 to 30 something Tiffany, and I'm just like, she's so cool. Like, I want to be her, right? So, kind of like embodied in that number one point is like, how can we make disability aspirational? You can look at Tiffany's story and you say, I want to be Tiffany. And when you say, I want to be Tiffany when I grow up, you mean all of the identities that she embodies, right? I can't leave my disability identity at the door, or the fact that I'm an Asian woman. And I know in the context of everything that's happening now, there's a lot that's happening within the AAPI community. So that's number one. Number two, what keeps me going is just looking at the team that we've built. So I know, Rachel, you had a chance to meet not only some of our community members, but some of our core team members as well. And all of us identify as disabled. So we are a 100% disabled team. We've got 9 folks, including myself, and we're supporting people's livelihoods. So I love that we kind of have this public facing part, which is let's get you to see how you can be proud to be disabled. But we also have just within our team, like, let me show you, or like, let me support like getting job experience, right? One of the things that you mentioned in that question is a lot of us aren't given the chance.
Yeah.
People will see our disabilities and then they'll make judgments about what they think we can or can't do. And interestingly enough, I just posted a video late last night around how I shoot content. And probably no one ever thought that that is how I shoot content, by stabilizing a phone with my knees to do an unboxing video, and so that also highlights, it reminds me of like that Goldman thing of the pitch book at 9 a.m., right?
Yeah.
The content that you are consuming looks the same, but because I am being a creative problem solver in my disabled body, the way I do it might look different. And does that matter? Yes or no, from a work output perspective? No. So give me the chance, right?
Mm. So, the theme of International Women's Day was breaking the bias. And as you talk about this and say, give me a chance, right? I want to see that video too. I didn't see you post that yet. We as is we on this side, right? The eye banker, right? That's like, this needs to be done. The people that are just blind to it. What can we do to have more awareness, more sensitivity, more compassion, for the kind of people that are part of your organization and with any sort of disabilities?
Yeah. So I'm just going to say one asterisk, and then I will answer your question. So one of the things I've been noticing is that we have used being blind to a situation a lot. And I just want to highlight that some people who may be blind uh, might not prefer that language. So instead, we could use we've been unaware for a long time. But I just wanted to call that out / call that in a
Yeah.
little bit, because it's almost like, so like, again, I have a form of paralysis in one of my arms, and the number of times I've heard paralyzed by fear, or the economy was paralyzed. And I'm like, there are a lot of other terms that you can use that don't weaponize and continue to shed a negative light on different disabilities. So little asterisks. The other thing I'll say is I've been really reflecting on how the disability community is not a monolith. So Rachel, once you've met me, who I'm a disabled Asian woman, you've met one disabled Asian woman. And the fascinating thing about LinkedIn is now you have the opportunity to follow so many different disabled professionals on this platform who all have really different experiences to share. So I would say if you are a LinkedIn power user, which I feel like Rachel is, I would suggest starting to follow different LinkedIn creators on this disabled LinkedIn creators on this platform. And once you start getting this exposure, like you mentioned, the theme of this month is breaking the bias. So one of the best ways to tackle any type of bias is, and this is from Dr. Vivian Ming, is through real life continuous experiences with people who challenge your stereotypes. Real life continuous experiences with people who challenge your stereotypes. Many of us are existing in a virtual world right now. So what does that real life continuous experience look like? It means potentially following people who might have perspectives that are different than your own. And that's how we end up starting to break the disability bias. I'll put disability in parentheses in that hashtag. Is that's where you start to get exposure. And then similar to you and me connecting, Rachel, is we started to build a level of intimacy in our relationship over time, right? By having, not only did you have exposure to me in that one Clubhouse room, was that I continued to join every single week, right? Because I love what you were doing. And I was learning a ton from you too, and wanted to participate and support the best way that I could. And so as a result of building that intimacy, I can then come to you and say, hey, Rachel, I know you are an expert in this space. Our community members need this. I'd love a way for you, if you have the time, to come and share some of that within our community. And now we've had all these little touch points in between. right? And so I think that oftentimes when we think about bias, it's because we've othered another person so much that we can't feel like we relate to their experience. But then as you, again, this real life continuous experiences paired with intimacy, I actually think is how you create real allyship. So it starts with following someone, but you might start, and Rachel, you've done a great job of this. You're always commenting and engaging with my posts, especially if they resonate with you. But then, like, as you start to comment, like, the whole point of LinkedIn was to start conversations to build a community. You start building a community, and then maybe you're like, let's connect offline. You know, this is the first time you and I are connecting one on one
Yeah.
over video. So
Yeah. Oh, I mean, so many gems. I love what you're talking about here of just bringing awareness to ourselves, following how easy it is to follow people and to be intentional with who you're following and how are you engaging with people. And I, I that unconscious bias, right? Like I think most of us would, if we were to look at all the people we follow, I bet you a lot of us are following people that are like us, not necessarily so different. And I don't mean like necessarily by look, by values, all of that. And that, it's also important to check out the people that aren't so like us, that wouldn't be traditionally in that tribe. That I love that. And I mean, couldn't the follow through and the commenting, y'all, like I can't express this enough how critical because I want to talk a little bit about you as a creator, Tiffany, and what you've created for yourself as now a speaker and what I believe to be a creator in the creator economy because of the way in which you've been active and commenting and engaging and following through. It's created a whole new platform for you.
mhm.
Right. And I think that's what people when we have all these rooms and Josh and we're talking, it's like people don't realize what the potential is in as you're sharing your voice, as you're following up, as you're creating that potential opportunity. I don't know. I don't know what could come that like now I look at you and I think, oh my God, like Tiffany, she's been in the before this, she told me she's been in the creator program, not only for LinkedIn, but for Twitter and for TikTok, which is quite impressive. You're a TEDx speaker, World Economic Forum. I mean, like, you're getting paid to speak. Can you just talk about that? Your journey to actually be what I would consider a true creator, how you made your way, and maybe some tips for people that are seeking something similar?
Yeah, well, I remember Rachel when I was going to say you and I, but there were way more than you and I in your clubhouse rooms. But I remember the number one question we would always get asked would be, how do I monetize? And
Yes.
these are people who had just started their channel like last week.
Right.
And so the first asterisk I kind of want to put in is that it takes time. And I have shared this on LinkedIn. I started speaking. I started knowing that I wanted to do more speaking in 2014. And I didn't start working with the Speakers Bureau and doing a much higher volume of speaking engagements until I got represented by them last year. And I was still getting paid and doing stuff, but that was all on my own before then. So keep in mind, like 2014, Tiffany's like, I want to do more speaking. 2021, I think I really like came into my own and realized like, wow, I'm like bringing in enough dollars that I should add this to my LinkedIn headline, right? Similar thing happened on the creator side where I've been active on Instagram since 2011 or 2012. I'm thinking back to I think I started Instagram after I left Goldman because
Yeah,
there's some, you know,
of
social
course.
media and working in corporate world. There's always some some sensitivity
Always.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
So 2012 and now it's 2022, right? So I've been on Instagram posting. I mean, you will notice if you scroll all the way back that there's been a change in the type of content and
Yeah.
the look of it. My first Instagram post ever was a photo of a chocolate box, and the caption was "Life is like a box of chocolates." Great quote, but does nothing to add value.
Right, right.
And so I had never considered myself a creator until I sat down last year and I started a spreadsheet called revenue. And because I call myself like a creative entrepreneur, in the sense that, yes, we have diversibility, but I think hashtag entrepreneur life, we also have to realize that it's okay to have other places where our main streams of income come from. And to be totally transparent, diversibility is the lowest. I mean, we're supporting a lot of people at diversibility. So for Tiffany's like bank account, it's lower on the rung of where money is coming in from. But from a creator perspective, I I lost my train of thought because I got really excited about the comments coming in, and they come in so fun, like little bubbles. But as a creator, like I sat down in this spreadsheet and I realized like not even doing this full time, not even being like super cognizant that or leaning into the fact that I was a creator, I had brought in like $55,000 of different content related deals. And a lot of people will use their content to get speaking gigs or to get consulting gigs. So I'm not even including that. I'm just talking about pure content. And that's not a lot of money, but also not a little money, right? And again, I'm doing this
A
on the
lot of money.
side.
I'm like, wow, I want to make 50. I'm like,
Well,
I'm
remember
not
you're in
there.
Texas
I'm
and I'm in
learning too. I'm like,
California.
I want that. Okay.
And so I will share 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago to this month, I downloaded TikTok. Like many of us, we were at home. I was like, I don't get this TikTok thing. I don't lip sync. I can't dance. Well, we can all dance, but not the types of dance maybe TikTok would
Right.
enjoy. Um, and so I just started posting stuff and I was like, since this is a video platform, maybe it would be interesting to start creating content about how I do things with one hand because and I'm like catching up with like some of my friends from my banking days, and they're like, Tiffany, I found your TikTok and I had no idea.
Wow.
And that's the thing is like Emily Ladau, who's another disability advocate, she says, in order to make the world more accessible, we need to make the disability experience more accessible to the world. So the fact that people don't understand the intricacies, because I have a lot of people come to me and very well meaning, but it is a type of microaggression. They'll say to me, I don't consider you as disabled. But then I'm like, I just had to film this unboxing video. And if I'm taking things out of the box, I have to have another way to stabilize my phone. And the tripod is too short. So anyway, I don't think people understand like all of the creative hacks that we have had to do in our lives as disabled people because the world wasn't built for us.
Right.
But rewind back on the creator thing. So TikTok had launched this program called Learn on TikTok, and they were committing some money to get more educational creators on the platform. They were like, we want this to be more than the dancing and
Yeah.
the lip syncing. And some people call it edutainment, like how can you incorporate something entertaining with also learning something? So I started just creating a lot of content and ended up getting accepted to this Learn on TikTok program, which was, a period of 2 months, and you got plugged into a community similar to the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. And then they started calling me a creator. They're like, hey,
Mm.
TikTok creators, in their newsletters. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily directed at me, but that was the first time I had ever been called a creator. And I started getting more curious about like, wow, I was paid to be in this creator program. Like, I wonder what other monetization opportunities there might be.
Yeah.
And I'll share that as someone who I studied finance and accounting in college. I worked in finance related fields for 6 years after I graduated. So 10 years of looking at numbers and looking at numbers. And so much of how I build today is also looking at numbers. So even when we started Diversibility, because we're a for-profit community business, for me was really thinking through how are we going to generate income here. And now our question is, okay, we know how to generate income, but how do we do it at scale? Because right now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, here's some money. But is that enough to support everyone that we want to be able to support? So yeah, I think for me, it's like every opportunity. And the other thing I'll share, and my speaker rep said this to me. He goes, Tiffany, we didn't invent capitalism, and I know a lot of us don't like it, but we have to learn how to survive and thrive in it. And that's why
Hmm.
I've spent a lot of my platform on LinkedIn trying to be more transparent about money, because I think
Yeah.
so many of us are afraid of it. And I have a feeling that some people will watch this live or they're listening to the recording and they're like, all Tiffany thinks about is money. And I'm like, well, I need to live, right?
Yeah.
And you also
Yeah.
have to think that the money that you make, Rachel, goes to support you. You have a family. You'll probably also support other lady bosses too. Like you're investing that money into women. I think about where my money goes, supports me, my family, supports other AAPI businesses, lifting other disabled people up when we can too. So it's a whole system that we're operating in. And I will share that for a long time, and still, a lot of my advocacy work pays $0, right? And that's why I
Yeah.
had to kind of become this creative entrepreneur and say, where are the other spaces that I'm seeing other people be able to monetize? And do I have the opportunity to create opportunity for myself in those spaces as well?
I mean, I love that thought of a creative entrepreneur. I mean, inherently as an entrepreneur, as I'm learning, you have to have a multi-dimensional way of looking at money. Like there isn't just going to be this job that pays you all the time, right? And it's kind of about time when you think about it, Tiffany, since all of the social media platforms have been using us. I mean, LinkedIn's the best, I would say. I mean, I'm going to be real with my audience, right? And I see you, Sudeep. I see you, Nathan. Thank you, Rachel, for being here. Um, we're the users. Like we're the users, right? We all saw the social dilemma, like Facebook's, Instagram. They're using us to make money, and so it's kind of right that like your content, your perspective, your story, which is so compelling, that you should get paid for it, right? Like it's a different way of thinking about, being a creative entrepreneur, even if you're not an entrepreneur. But I think at the time, it makes sense, and it's only fair that our IP is truly our IP. Um, and I love the light that you're sort of shedding here on the potential. I mean, it's exciting, Tiffany, to hear that you can bring in $55,000 and you can be a TikTok creator and get like that's exciting for not just me and people on LinkedIn, but just the Gen Z and the new audience. I mean, my 12-year-old stepson, he says, I want to be a YouTuber, right? He sits and watch Minecraft videos all the time. Same with Skylar, who's going to be 10, Tiffany. Okay. They're not on TikTok yet. I'm like, I don't want them to be on the social for as long as possible. But that's what they say. I want to be a YouTuber. So he
And
shoots
and that's
videos of
and
himself.
what'd you say?
He shoots videos of himself doing
Mhm.
Minecraft. And I'm like, this is in my head. I'm like, really? Is this possible? My like parenting self is like, no, like go get that job, like go to college. You know what I'm like, no, don't do it. But the reality is like things are changing. You're sort of showing what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating. The number of people who came to me and I felt embarrassed to tell them that I was creating content on TikTok. And I was like, no, don't go follow me. It's embarrassing. And I remind myself that if it's not a little embarrassing, then it's not TikTok. But then I looked at the receipts, right? I mean, all of this is about receipts. And even when we were on Clubhouse, we were talking about receipts too.
Yeah.
And now I'm actually talking about the physical receipts, but like there's real money happening in the creator space. So when your son says, I want to be a YouTube star, there's money there, right?
Yep.
And, like when I hear that, if slash when I ever have kids and they tell me they want to become like an influencer, I don't think I'm gonna, maybe 10 years ago I would have been like, no, please study finance so you can be an investment banker. But there's potential. I mean, I'm curious. I have my revenue spreadsheet set up for
I love it.
2021. I probably need to come up with some better accounting. But yeah, I mean, we're only 3 months into this year, and right now of receipts, like expected receipts, it's already at all of what I made in 2021. So
Wow.
So yeah, make some content. And I will say, and it only happened in an audio room, so it wasn't recorded. I had a friend on and we did a Q&A around the monetization opportunity potentially presented on LinkedIn, because I know you and Josh are superpower users here and love LinkedIn. And I think we are only in the very like nascent beginning stages of seeing what monetization might look like as a LinkedIn creator. And I'm
Mm,
not talking about spinning it out into consulting or your course or speaking engagements. I'm talking about getting paid to post something on LinkedIn as a brand deal. But again, also thinking as a creator, there are so many diversified, and I love the word you use, dynamic ways that you can think about monetization. So it's not just let me do a brand deal, which of course there is, but for the LinkedIn, and I know we're coming to the end of our time, for the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program that I was part of, we were all paid $15,000.
right.
I hope I didn't share any confidential information, but I think that's listed
No,
on
that was
the what's
public.
listed
That's
on the
totally
application page.
public. Yeah.
And $15,000, that comes out to $5,000 a month. That may or may not be a little for you, but that is way more than $0. So,
Yeah, it's
so like,
sounds major, yeah.
yeah. So it's not, yeah. So if you're maybe your what one of your son's dreams will be to be a LinkedIn creator star, and
Yeah. Yeah, anyone watching, please, he needs more followers than just me. Yeah, he's a JJ Craft. We helped, make his name. I love it. Tiffany, oh my gosh. And people are just saying in here, blog posts on accounting for creators as you're, talking about this. This is very intriguing to say, how am I accounting? How much can I make potentially with speaking and being a creator? What does that look like? Maybe some interesting content for you to create. I'm not at that point yet, but I'm gonna look at you as my guidepost here.
I know
Um,
a lot of people are asking me to write blog posts, and I will say of all of the content to create, writing, and I feel like my literary agent won't like it when I say this, but writing is, and I actually think this happened. So I wanted my dream. I really wanted to become a journalist, and I really wanted to be a writer, which is why I got that job at Bloomberg Television. But one thing I learned was that when writing became my job, it kind of like removed the zest from it. So I also want to highlight that like I'm not a full time creator, so I don't feel the pressure to put out to like punch out content every single day. And for those who are interested in what it might look like to become a full-time creator, there's a Netflix series out now called Hype House, and I know it's got some criticisms around diversity and who was in the house, but it's so stressful for them, and I'm like, wow, like this is something that I go to be creative and have fun, and when it becomes, yeah, and so it's just figuring out this nuance. Like for me, I feel like my life is very balanced, where like I do some speaking. I'm a side hustler of all of these different things. And because
yeah.
none of them are like the super full thing, I haven't really put that pressure and stress on myself to like make it work. Right. And this is why, again, I advocate for diversifying our streams of income.
Oh, I totally agree. That creative entrepreneur, that way of thinking, what does that really mean for me? And it's a great point. Like, I mean, as a creator, like I do like to write, but I hear you as I have to write more and get to write more and more on behalf of our clients. It does start to get more tiresome and an energy drain. And so when you're creating, you want to feel inspired. And to
Mm,
feel inspired, that might be on an audio platform. It might be writing. It might be video, right? Video. Not a lot of people aren't that comfortable on video, Tiffany. You're great on video, right? And so if you're listening, like, how do I start doing? You also need to figure out the modality for creation that's the most comfortable for you, because you want to be inspired. You want it to feel easy for yourself. Whatever that might be, choose what feels good to start.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll also share like if like I remember when I was at Goldman, or actually when I was at Revolt, I worked for this company that was co-founded by P. Diddy. And on paper, it was everything that I dreamed like 20 something, lean in, Sheryl Sandberg, channeling my inner Sheryl Sandberg wanted, right? I had my own office. I was director level. I was sitting in on on board meetings, you know, and Diddy was the chairman of the board, so he was there. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds cool, but at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know. I wanted something to balance it out. And so, but I stayed in the job because it would, you know, it helped support my lifestyle in New York at the time. And so I just also want to let your followers know that if your full hustle isn't giving you all of those creative juices, it's okay. We all have different reasons for doing the things that we want to do. But I hope that, you know, we call this your 9 to 5, and then maybe you have a 5 to 9. In your outside time, that's where you can express the parts of yourself that maybe you aren't able to when you're in work.
Yeah. It's wonderful advice because it can be a both and. I think that's the beauty of what you're doing, what I'm doing. For me, I had to leave corporate to really feel like I could share my voice, but that's for me. And a lot of companies are very supportive of you having those things outside, and finding a place where maybe you can do all of it. And I mean, that's like what's really cool about the time period that we're in. I think
Yeah.
it's special. Oh, Tiffany, well, what an amazing conversation. Thank you for introducing yourself so deep. I see you on there. Thank you. I love it. I love it. I love it. You are amazing, Tiffany. I honor you. I respect you. I'm so excited to continue to learn from what you're doing. And I hope that in a little bit, a year from now, we can sit and say that I'm making as much money as you as a creator. Hey, putting it out there. You got to put it out there.
I know we're manifesting.
We're manifesting on our Friday, March 11th. And continue to follow Tiffany. She does amazing stuff on pretty much every single platform. She's incredible. So thank you so much for being with us today. Have a beautiful rest of your March, everybody. I will see you first week of April on LinkedIn Live. All right. Bye, everyone.